you please silence your cell phones and other electronics and refrain from creating any disruptive sounds. At this time, I'd like to invite Pastor Joshua Beckley from the Ecclesia Christian Fellowship Church to come forward and lead us in the invocation. Please all arise.
Let's bow and pray. Our Father and our God, we thank you for the privilege to be living in this city, and we thank you for the leadership. We do ask you now to bless over these proceedings, and as we conduct the business of our city, we pray that you give our mayor, our common council, and those who have been elected and appointed the wisdom they need to govern and to make decisions that will benefit us all. Bless this proceedings now, we pray, with your presence. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Beckley. I'd like to invite now Evelyn Harper to come forward, and she will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Evelyn is a fourth grader at Newmark Elementary.
Good evening, everybody. I hope you've had a fabulous day. My name is Evelyn Harper. Please take off your hats while we say the Pledge of Allegiance. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, Evelyn. Thank you, Evelyn. Thank you, Pastor Beckley. First item of business this evening is a presentation. But before we do that, I'll ask City Attorney to report out closed session.
For me to do it now, Mayor, or once
Yes,
we
please.
conclude?
If you go ahead and make that presentation.
I'll go ahead with what we have,
Thank you.
yes. In the matter of City of San Bernardino versus DPSB Quality Investments, Council gave settlement directive by vote of 4-0 with Councilman Valdivia and Barrios abstaining and Henry Nickel absent. In the matter of Hector Briones versus City of San Bernardino, Council gave settlement directive by vote of 7-0. And under item B, anticipated litigation, and in case of City versus Gonzalez, Council gave settlement directive 7-0. In the case of City versus Sosa, gave settlement directive by vote of 7-0. And in the case of City versus Townsend, Council gave settlement directive by vote of 7-0. That's the report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our first presentation is by Councilmember Virginia Marquez for the presentation of Student of the Month.
Thank you, Mayor. It is with great pleasure that I present Domingo De Jarro, Student of the Month, 12th grade, Indian Springs High School. Domingo, can you please come up? Let's give him a round of applause. And I'd like to read his bio because I think that you'll find he's San Bernardino's future. Domingo De Jarro is a native of San Bernardino. He attended E. Neil Roberts, Mount Vernon, and Lancashire Elementary Schools before attending Serrano Middle School. He is now a senior at Indian Springs High School, where he will graduate in June 2018 with a 4.74 grade point average. Let's give him a round of applause. Domingo's mother is Gabriela Cuevas. Gabriela, please stand up. Congratulations, felicidades. And Domingo has 3 sisters. Rita is a student at Portland State University in Oregon, and Rita was Student of the Month in 2016, so it's all in the family. He also has 2 other sisters. Fatima is a student at Cal State University San Bernardino, and Daniela is a 9th grader at Indian Springs High School as well. His pet, Charlie, is a German Shepherd. Domingo is a member of the Psych Scholarship Club and the Historical Movie Club. His favorite classes are mathematics, science, and psychology. Domingo plans to attend UC Santa Cruz, where he will major in computer science. His message to all students in the district is to let them know that lots of people will tell you how to live your life. Quote, do what makes you happy, end of quote. Ladies and gentlemen, let's congratulate Domingo de Jarro as Student of the Month for March 2018.
I'd like to thank Council Member Virginia Marquez. I'd like to thank Mayor Davis. I'd like to thank my mom, of course. And thanks to the awesome staff at Indian Springs High School.
So I'd like to present this certificate from the City of San Bernardino, and also there is another presentation by Assemblymember Reyes' office.
Awesome. Good evening, good evening. May I say, my guy is looking the freshest one here. Look at this guy. Can we get up for his presentation? Come on. Super fresh. But again, on behalf of the Honorable Eloise Gomez Reyes, I definitely wanted to come by and join Councilmember Virginia to honor you, Domingo. And it reads, the Honorable Eloise Gomez Reyes proudly joins with the San Bernardino City Council to recognize you as a Student of the Month. Thank you for demonstrating exceptional leadership and being an exemplary role model at Indian Springs High School, right? Perfect. There you go, first word. On behalf of the California State Assembly, I hereby extend best wishes for a prosperous future, which I know and I'm confident you'll have, and more success to you. Congratulations.
Thank you, Margaret Hill.
Thank you, Councilmember Marquez. Next, we will invite Councilmember Barrios to the podium for the presentation of the Citizen of the Month.
Wow, this is short. Okay, well, I'm not sure if we have a certificate because I haven't received one. But the Citizen of the Month is a gentleman who's been advocating in the community for our city against gun violence. And he's been doing it for, I think, over 2 years now. And I asked him recently, like, hey, have you ever been recognized as the Citizen of the Month? Because you definitely, do qualify or deserve to be recognized. This is a gentleman who has stood up, and he's a part of ICUC, who has gone out and every single month has had a peace walk, and he's one that's organized many of them. And rain or shine, there's a meeting held. And just to give you some more information about this individual, he's been a San Bernardino resident since 1999. As a youth, he experienced systematic oppression and of black and brown communities in San Bernardino. He volunteered at the Central City Lutheran Mission from 2000 to 2006 as a mentor to youth in their after-school program. He volunteered 3 to 4 nights a week to help homeless men run their first homeless shelter in San Bernardino at CCLM in 2003. In 2008, he became an active leader in ICUC around the towing policy that targets poor and undocumented folks as issue. This person cares about it as affected poor and immigrant communities. In 2013, he became a full-time organizer with the ICUC. As an ICUC organizer in San Bernardino, he has strived to train parents how to navigate the school system and organize. The parents that were trained with ICUC secured the commitment and creation of parent centers and other investments towards family engagement and student achievement through the LCFF, the local controlling funding formula, funds from Prop 30. With an immigration community, they held various forums around SB 60 driver's license forums, deferred action for childhood arrivals, and Know Your Rights forums. In 2014, he started moving and organizing ICUC clergy in San Bernardino to take on the issue of urban gun violence under what is now our Common Ground for Peace campaign. Today, the city of San Bernardino has included the ceasefire approach under the name Violent Intervention Program in its city planning and vision, and it's due to our Citizen of the Month, Mr. Sergio Luna.
Thank you, Member Barrios and City Council members and Mayor, Chief of Police. I'd like to thank every single one of us that, even from the community perspective, have been asking our leadership to take on some of the most difficult, I know, and even at the time that we are in right now, the gun violence in our city, and I'm super appreciative of all the efforts and all the accomplishments that we gotten so far, and I look forward to the opportunities that this violence intervention program brings. And I also like to thank my family. I know they're here. You heard my daughter; she's screaming her little heart out. She's so proud of me, right? But I wanted to thank them because a lot of the times I have to spend most of my evenings or even early mornings to late at nights, like many of you guys do. But from the community perspective of making sure that we take the right leadership in our city. So I'd like to thank every one of you and my family as well, and especially Benito Barrios for acknowledging. Thank you.
You have another presentation.
Awesome. It's such a beautiful thing to really just recognize your bravery, Mr. Luna, that you're really advocating for the toughest battles that our city faces. And you're not the one who just talks the talk, but you really walk the walk. So I wanted to share this from our Assemblymember Reyes, which, again, proudly joins with the San Bernardino City Council to recognize you as the Citizen of the Month. Thank you for demonstrating exceptional leadership, engaging in civic outreach, which you're a busy man, and advocating for the needs of our community. On behalf of the California State Assembly, I hereby extend best wishes for a prosperous future filled with continued happiness and success. Congratulations, Mr. Luna.
Thank you, Councilmember Barrios. We'll next turn some time over to the Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Leslie Stevens. I'm the Director of Sales at the Residence Inn in San Bernardino and also a board member for the San Bernardino Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here to deliver the announcements for the next 2 weeks. But first of all, I just want to tell everybody how prosperous the hotel industry is in San Bernardino. All of the hotels are bursting at the seams. We are all busy. It's all so positive. I'm just so very grateful that people want to come and do their business here. Okay, so Saturday, March 24th, beginning at 12 noon, the City of San Bernardino presents the San Bernardino Art Fest at the 66ers Stadium on East Street, featuring artists from multiple galleries as well as live music and food trucks. On that evening, on March 24th, the San Bernardino Symphony Orchestra presents Views from the Stage at the California Performing Arts Theater on 4th Street. Call the Symphony at 381-5388 for more information and tickets. March 27th at 7 a.m., the Claremont McKenna College presents Inland Empire Visions, Trends, and Challenges at 690 North Mills in Claremont. Call 607-7572 for more information. Also on March 27th, National Career Fairs presents a career fair at the Hilton Garden Inn, San Bernardino, located at 1755 South Waterman Avenue, beginning at 11 a.m. Please call 877-561-5627 for more information. Our Coffee Klatch speaker on March 28th, starting at 7:30 at the Chamber, located at 546 West 6th Street, will be 2 jurors from the San Bernardino Civil Grand Jury, speaking on what about the Civil Grand Jury does and how you can go about serving on a jury. And I have been on 3 juries, and I've been a jury foreman twice. I think everybody should do that and serve. It's a wonderful experience. We wish you all a peaceful and reflective day on Good Friday, March 30th.
Thank you. We have something from the
Yes, I'm
Assembly
back,
Member
I know.
Reyes' office.
All right, Assemblymember Reyes, I want to personally invite you all to 2 events we have coming up in the month of April, one of which is going against the problem with air pollution. So if environmental justice is really where your heart is, on April 5th, we're having an AB 617 community meeting at the Ruben Campos Center here, of course, in San Bernardino from 6 to 8. And it's really connected to the cap and trade extension. But we really want to hear your voice in figuring out how we can really stop the air pollution. So that's, again, April 5th. And then also we have a citizenship fair coming up in April 14th at the Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School on the 6th Ward. So we definitely invite you to come out to that as well. And it's really just letting our permanent residents go through the process of citizenship and make sure that they can stay in this beloved city. All right, so those are 2 announcements. I have some flyers here for you guys as well. Have a good one.
Thank you. We have one public speaker for items on the agenda, Robert Porter. Robert Porter. All right. Do we have any items from the council, the consent calendar? Councilmember Mulvihill?
I have none, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilmember Richard?
I have none.
Councilmember Nichol?
I have none.
Councilmember
No, sir.
Valdivia? Councilmember Barrios?
None tonight.
Councilmember,
None, none. No, no, none.
for the record, I have a conflict with item number 9.
Move the balance.
Thank you.
And if I may ask, and I apologize to the city attorney, didn't you want to pull the minutes from the consent calendar?
Yes.
So I hope it's still a ditto with the no polls, but we would
yes.
like to pull.
The city attorney's office wanted to consult with the city clerk's office on the minutes, and we're asked that they be pulled and continue to the next meeting.
Okay, then that's part of my motion to approve everything.
Thank you.
Very
Including
good.
mayor's conflict of interest.
Thank you, sorry.
Thank you.
And we're just reviewing a potential clerical error.
Oh, I guess I need it. Sorry. You're not using this?
On the consent calendar, Mr. Mayor, the motion to approve was made by Mr. Charette, the second by Mr. Valdivia, and the item passes 7-0.
Thank you. Next is item number 25. This is staff report amending municipal code chapter 2.58 related to the conduct of public meetings and establishing reasonable regulations for public meetings, testimony, procedural rules, and quasi-judicial hearings. Rebecca Kramer?
Mayor, members of the council, thank you for letting me speak this evening. The item before you this evening is an amendment to Municipal Code Chapter 2.58, which would be addressing the conduct of public meetings and quasi-judicial hearings, as well as a resolution that would establish the procedural rules for your judicial hearings, and then a resolution that will be establishing reasonable regulations for public comments and testimony. The draft ordinance and resolutions that are presented are based on the feedback that you'd provided at this special meeting of the Mayor and Council on March the 5th. Did you have any questions in terms of the content? And do you want me to kind of hit some of the highlights
Yes.
in terms of what was included with the amended ordinance? Would that be
Yes,
helpful for me to
please.
kind of walk through those? Okay. So with respect to the amendment to the municipal code, you'll find the primary changes pertain, and you can see these on packet page 1109 and 1110. Items 7, 8, and 9 the primary areas of the additional language that was added into the ordinance. These specifically relate to the conduct of speakers at your open meetings for both the mayor and council, as well as your commissions, boards and commissions. And then with respect to, you'll find on 1113, packet page 1113, pertaining to the hearing procedures, there was an additional component that was added into the municipal code that specifically relates to procedures for quasi-judicial hearings. And then that was further refined in the resolution that kind of walks through the actual procedure that would be followed when you have a quasi-judicial hearing. And then if you look on so those are the highlights from the actual ordinance changes that are being presented. With respect to the resolution, like I say, you've got two resolutions that are before you this evening. One gives you the hearing procedures and the rules that would be followed relative to that. And then the second resolution is pertaining specifically to public comments and testimony. And in this case, adjustments have been made to ensure that any time that you have a hearing, that everyone that wishes to speak will have an opportunity to do so by ensuring that we have time limits so that every single person that is presented at a public hearing has time to actually provide you with their comments and feedback. And we've set that same 3-minute time limit for both the public speakers for items that are on your agenda, as well as items that are in a hearing. So those were the highlighted items in terms of what was changed in this.
Thank you. City Manager.
And this really reflects really some legal questions. There are differences between public hearings and quasi-judicial hearings, and so in response to this, once this is adopted, we will then also make sure that on your council agendas, you know when we're conducting a quasi-judicial hearing compared to a public hearing, and there are differences with respect to the procedural requirements that would be required for those two different types of proceedings. So again, really trying to be clear about the action or the role that the council is playing with respect to this particular item before you.
Thank you. Councilman Valdivia.
Ms. Kramer, regarding the quasi-judicial ordinance found on packet page 113 and following, who wrote, under whose inspiration was this somehow formulated, and who provided many of these, of this information?
I think it would probably be better for me to answer that.
Sure,
This
go.
was really following the council's discussion at the recent study session on strategic planning. One of the questions that, or discussions that we had was, how can we ensure that everyone has an opportunity to speak, that we really don't want people who have business to conduct with the city to have to wait until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. So there was a fairly lengthy discussion about ways that we could make this more businesslike. And as part of that, the question was posed to the city attorney. In many communities, there are distinctions about the different types of hearings. And so in response to that, we worked with Stephen Graham of the city attorney's office to identify the two different types of hearings that the council has from time to time, and then crafted the ordinance, again, based on the feedback that we received.
Thank you. Are there any overt new updates outside of the regular rules of conduct on this? I mean, why the specific highlight of a quasi-judicial, and what other municipalities and jurisdiction mimic this ordinance?
This is very consistent with other cities. Rebecca did walk through the specific changes to the conduct type items, so it was just those three
Sure.
sections. And then the bulk of the changes really relate to distinguishing public hearings from those sections or times when you're operating more in a quasi-judicial capacity. And then making sure that you have some procedural standards so that when you're operating in that capacity, you know the expectations for those types of hearings.
Is this a new form? Is this mimicked in any other jurisdiction? I mean, do they have specific language or ordinance that would say?
Yeah, very similar.
Yes?
Yes, very similar to many other communities.
Okay.
And some of them do it in their ordinances, and some of them have just established it by resolution. but to ensure we're consistent with what our practice has been, we included it as an ordinance, and then we also established the resolution with the procedural standards.
Okay. And then anecdotally, because I don't know that you probably would figure all this out on my question, but anecdotally, what would you say, what portion of a city council would be confined to quasi-judicial action?
The number of quasi-judicial actions that you will ever hold is very minuscule. It's when you're dealing with an appeal issue. I was trying to think of one recently.
I'm going to need a mic off. It'll be very few. You have other boards and commissions at the city who are primarily tasked with handling those. The ones that you will most often see will be appeals of planning commission actions, and you know that those are relatively rare.
And final question is, so they will be somehow on our calendar, on public calendar, and so they will be marked as quasi-judicial.
Yeah, much as we've done with your staff reports now, where we've tried to create the header that says staff report, consent calendar, we will now reference those as quasi-judicial hearings. So there's really no question in anyone's mind about what procedures, and we thought that was fair for the public, so that if they wanted to understand the way you'd operate during that portion of the agenda, they will be able to go to a resolution and very clearly understand that. So it will be in the very heading that it says judicial, quasi-judicial proceeding.
On line 23, packet page 115, it suggests that the recordings of the proceedings shall be held via audio recordings. Ms. City Manager, would you be amenable to compromise here and also say include and/or video?
We can, but not, and correct me, Stephen, because you attend more of the meetings, I think some of our groups are not meeting in rooms where there's video capability. So where we can, like for you, where we use this room, yes, I think the Planning Commission uses this room, so theirs would, but yeah, any of those.
Well, if there's no objection and seeing it, that's why I'm suggesting the and/or, because in past practice, we've had some issues here, council calling, city manager, and we want this video recorded. So I would move that we insert that if there's no objection from council, but and/or video.
Yeah,
That'd be all right with you?
As long as you understand, there may be times when it's a scheduling
understood.
issue that causes
Sure.
us not to be able to do that.
Sure,
Yeah,
as available, and/or.
That's fine.
Okay. With that, I'd like to move it with that recommendation. So, Ms. City Clerk, if you can make a note. Thank you.
Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you, Mayor. Rebecca, this is a very well-written report, and it was easy to read, so thank you for that. Just for clarification, this agenda item is also recommending that there be a 3-minute time limit for members of the public for provide testimony during a public hearing. As it is now, it's a free-for-all. Right, okay, so this should really make the public hearings flow better.
Flow better, and we have had some people that have called our office after the meetings and said, I had to leave, and so I
Right.
didn't get a chance. And because they thought that they were going to be able to speak when they were here, they didn't submit something in writing, and so you really didn't have the benefit of their comments. So
Right.
we really want to ensure that where we can, we're being judicious, we're trying to get
Sure.
everyone able to speak in a timely manner.
Right.
And we really don't want to lose the audience like we unfortunately have in some meetings.
And I agree, because I did get some calls the next day and said I wanted to speak, but it was 1 o'clock in the morning and I had to go to work at 6, and I get that. So thank you for your recommendations. I believe
We have a
there was
motion.
a motion. I'll
Do we have a
second that.
second? We have a
I'll
second.
second that.
Yes.
Any further discussion? All right. Councilman Schritt.
Just a comment, I support this item, and I think it needs to be said that my colleague used the term mimic. We're actually probably trying to mimic others, because we've been a little bit different in the past, and we're trying to come into the 21st century, be more effective and more efficient in our meetings, and yet still give the public the opportunity to speak and do it as fairly and as possible. So I think the term best practices has not been used here tonight, and I think that's rather than mimicking, we're trying to do, and no offense to the word mimic, but it's really best practices in the industry, our industry in government, and so again, I support it, and it's all in the effort to make these meetings much more effective and efficient. Thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney?
In fact, what Councilwoman Marquez described as a free-for-all, it was very much the exception. Most jurisdictions, if not the vast, vast majority of them have time limitations on the testimony or the public hearing opportunity to speak during a quasi-judicial public hearing. So we are aligning ourselves with that best practice, if you will.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none?
On item 25, the motion to approve was made by Mr. Valdivia, the second by Ms. Marquez, and it was with the caveat that on resolution number 2018-88 had a change in language to include and/or videotaping, and as available, and the vote is 7-0.
Thank you. Next is item number 26. This is a public hearing. This public hearing is now open. Public hearing topic is to increase the maximum permitted service rate for integrated solid waste collection, processing, and disposal services. Trish Ray?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. Tonight I'm here to present a proposal for your consideration on an integrated solid waste rate going forward, effective April 1st. Is there, oh, here it is. I got it. Okay, as background, in 2016, Burtec was selected to hold the franchise agreement for the city of San Bernardino. This franchise agreement consolidated both city operations as well as 3 existing contractors. And as part of the condition for that franchise agreement, Burtec was asked to assume the existing rate structure established in 2008. So the current exclusive franchise agreement terms that really are applicable to this rate proposal has to do with the maximum permitted service rates. And that was set in the initial agreement by the 2008 rate structure that they accepted. Within the terms of the franchise agreement, they're allowed to change that MPSR by 2 different reasons, or request a change. One is, oh no. One is, I'll keep talking. One is for Consumer Price Index, or the CPI. They're allowed to request the CPI adjustment, and the CPI is based on CPI for this region. And they are allowed to request that as long as it is at or below 5%. Anything above 5% is not part of the term of the contract. And you'll see as this year, it is below 5%. Additionally, they are allowed to request a rate increase due to change in law. So if there are new programs that our regulators require of us that add significant increases to the service expected, they are allowed to submit a request for an increase based on that change in law. One of the other things that I didn't put up here that is another increase, and I realized I probably should have put on, is the host fee. Additionally, the contract has a host fee. While it is not tied to the MPSR, it is also an approved rate increase that Burtec can submit, and it is viewed as a pass-through to the city. So the rate proposal, or I should say rate increase, was received by the city within the time frame of the contract terms. In reviewing it, we found that we needed more time to be able to talk about 2 of the requests and be able to adjust for 2 of the requests. One was the host fee as well as the change due to regulation. However, after discussions, we found that the CPI increase request was valid and recommended moving forward today at this public hearing with the CPI rate increase. So what does that mean for the rate proposal? If approved by council and the mayor tonight, it would become effective April 1st. And that would allow a 1.92% CPI increase to Burtec effective that date. And any bills going out from Burtec at that point in time would have the 1.92% rate increase. What you're also considering tonight is the maximum terms of the contract. So for the next 4 years, we're asking that you approve the up to 5% CPI increase that is allowed within the contract. What this allows us to do in the future is return to council each year with the CPI increase as part of the consent calendar and be able to pass that through in a fairly straightforward way. And of course, what I want to emphasize is the rate projections that the citizens and you have seen are based on worst case. I have more copies on the side if citizens need a new reference for this. But like you see this year, they had an allowance of up to 5%, but they are only asking for 1.92%. And that will be the same circumstance for every year forward. We will base it on actual CPI. So, to give you a scale of things of where we're at, this is the impact for residential, and what this shows is the increase, annual increase in dollars per year for customers range anywhere from $5.28 a year up to, our low is $1.50 a year, no, $3 a year. The highest is $5.28 a year increase for residential. On the commercial side, a different kind of combination of rates that we have for commercial. But the low for the commercial is $25.80 for the year, up to the largest is $43.80 for the year increase. So, how do we compare? Because that's really kind of one of the critical things. We want to make sure that our market within our city is comparable to what others are paying. And as you see, in both cases, residential and commercial, we are on the low end of the rates. And that probably has to do with the fact that we haven't had a rate increase since 2008. Even with the increase, you'll see the two green bars. One is our current rate and one is our proposed rate. We are still low. And the interesting note in talking with the other cities and finding out information about the other cities on this list, all of them are considering going forward with another rate increase within the next 6 months. Regulations are increasing. It has been a challenge. And so every city is faced with more demands on the solid waste programs. So, the recommendation for today is to adopt the resolution approving the 1.92 CPI increase effective April 1st. And then also to direct staff to continue to work with Burtec on the other requests that they have come forward with on the recommendation due to law, and also host fee calculations. Also, staff will come forward and we'll return that to you when we're done with it as soon as we can. And then additionally, minimally, we will be back every year as part of the consent calendar process to bring you what the CPI adjustments will be. And that is it.
Thank you. Does that conclude your report?
That concludes my report.
And I just wanted to add, Mr. Mayor, you know, as Trish indicated, we started this partnership with Burtec in 2016. They've been a remarkable partner. I've had a couple of conversations with Colbert. Mike has been very responsive. There were an awful lot of things that were included in that agreement. It was a challenging time for the city. We were in bankruptcy. We were looking for ways to really try to improve the service that we were providing in our community and clean up the streets, and they've done a nice job. There are things, though, that are in that agreement that I think we all need time to look at and make sure that they're doing what they do best and that we do what we're doing best. And so those conversations, I see Mike shaking his head, they've been very agreeable to sitting down and having some really good dialogue, because our goal ultimately would be to make them successful and also make the city successful. So we felt it was important. There is a 9-month delay here. We've suggested that we walk through another process to address that, not burden the ratepayers with that, but to have them pay moving forward, and then begin to really quantify what those services are and how we should be providing them. And so we may return at a later date, but this is, we think, a fair way to move forward given the ongoing discussions that really need to be had. And again, they've been terrific to work with. They've done a lot of very good work in the community. We see that continuing. We just, I think, now need to, now that we're a year or so into it, really evaluate where we are.
Thank you. This time, we will open up the public hearing for public comments. Anyone who wishes to speak at this time that has submitted a public speaking slip, please stand and be sworn in. Luis Rivera.
Hello. Okay, I mean, I guess she could be right, you know, but I mean, I'm just a regular worker, and actually, I'm making less money than 1980. I used to make like $25 an hour. Now I'm making less. And I mean, it'll be, I guess, be all right. But I mean, you know, and if you put it in the citizen way, I don't think it's not good for the people. Because when you put the money, it's going to cost us actually. This is the way I can figure it out. I don't have not too many words, but I guess I just expressed myself as much as I could. I hope you guys understood me.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Jean Boisvert.
Good evening, Council. I do not support their price increase. They have not performed since they've been here. Part of their services are supposed to be street sweeping. February 19th, I wrote all the council members a letter. January 19th, I called the city, the hotline, and complained that they have not been sweeping the streets for months. I was directed to call Burtech. I told those people, my contract is with the city, not Burtech. I called City Council Chambers. I got a young lady, she did a very good job. Within 2 hours, she called me back, and she said that they were supposed to sweep our streets on the 2nd and 4th Mondays of the month. Imagine, the next day they're sweeping on my street. I shouldn't use the word sweep, they drive the streets. I can't keep up with them running, they go through quickly. They're leaving trails of dirt. I worked in the construction industry for 40 years. I know what Public Works demand of sweepers. These guys aren't doing it. And for several months, they weren't even sweeping the streets. I've talked to employees, and they weren't doing it. So there's no way that they're entitled to any type of an increase. They haven't been performing. Right now, the streets look great because it's been raining. So again, February 19th, I wrote all you council people a letter. I heard back from one individual. I talked to the young lady at the city council members, and she did a good job, and we got a reply back. City of Highland, if we get this increase, we will pay more than the City of Highland. City of Highland gets street sweeping every week. They sweep the day after they pick up trash. My daughter lives out there. Their streets look good. Our streets don't look good. So they haven't performed. They need to justify those rates, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Faye Aldridge.
Hello, Mayor and City Council. I'm here, Burtech, I haven't had any complaints. My concern is senior incomes. If this rate takes place, I would like for you guys to consider a senior's income. They're probably already at the limit of where they can pay, and a yearly increase, if you're on retirement, can be a big obstacle to whether you could make those payments or not. So in the future, when you consider those things, will you consider the seniors? You know, fixed income, just remember that. I don't know her name. She was comparing other cities to us. What was it, Upland, Rancho Cucamonga, Highland? They tend to be higher incomes than we are. She may, what am I trying to say? Legitimize the increase, but those cities have higher incomes than we do. We are a larger city than they are. So the increase, I think, if you could consider like itemizing it or discounting it some way, consider the size of our city, the income level that the residents have, and base it on that, not necessarily that 1.92%. Another thing, beautification. We're always talking about starting these food parks. In order to have beautification, I know that Highland gets a compost dump every year. And I was wondering when they first started servicing us why we couldn't have it too. Considering our size, the money we bring in for them, if you expect this city to change or be any kind of model in the future, and that's what you all are working towards, why can't we have that same dump? It's once a year, or for the compost bin, we can beautify our yards and things of that nature. You're teaching the residents how to cope and go forward. If they can't provide that, we ought to be able to access Highlands dump once a year in order to get that fertilizer and everything like that. That would also help the seniors because you can start food gardens, you can do all kinds of things to make their life more easier, live within their budgets and things of that nature. I don't see why we can't have it. So, I'm done.
Thank you. Robert Porter.
Mayor, council, good people. I don't know if you guys understand this, but most of the people in San Bernardino are on a budget. And when you voted to have this, basically have BirdTech take over, you should have put in the contract that we can't have these increases. Next year it's going to be 5%, 5%, 5%. We can't afford that. You just say, oh, it's only $5, right? Well, that could, I work at a food bank. $5 can buy food, man. We're coming out of bankruptcy here. You think BirdTech would give us a deal. Then we find out they're doing stuff for Highland, not doing for us. Why? Have you guys not looked into this properly? Are other cities getting more out of BirdTech than we are? So let's look into this, and no increases. We don't need that. We really do not need that. The elders are hurting for money. Please. I know it, and this is a tax. So you give away the trash services to a company, and then they tax us. So it's not technically a tax, but still they're taxing the people of San Bernardino. I thought you were all against taxes. We got to keep them low. Thank you very much.
Sandra Ibarra.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here to protest the increase on BirdTech. As several people have mentioned, there has not been much of an improvement. They go around our cars. We don't have a set schedule. The times, sometimes at 2 in the morning, sometimes 7 in the morning, sometimes at 2 in the afternoon. And we would like to get an advance notice of when they're going to street sweep. If you want to generate revenue, why not post those signs and make it so that everybody knows when street sweeping will happen? I came from Santa Ana, and when I moved out here, I was shocked that San Bernardino didn't even have those signs of street sweeping. Within 3 months of living here, I called the city and I asked, when is your street sweeping schedule? We don't have one. I mean, you're going to increase, but for what reasons? I know you gave your report, but I have here 30 signed protests from people around in my area. I live in the 2nd Ward. If you guys study the demographics of that area, you will see that the people in that area live in poverty levels already. 1.92% in April may not seem big, 5% every year. And come on, that's the maximum 5%. But if you give these companies the option to go as high as 5%, they will go up 5% every year. We're seeing it with the parcel tax. We are seeing it with the water bills. We are seeing it with the sewer rates. We have elderlies living in this city on fixed income and poverty level. So I will be submitting these 30. And for those who are running, some of you got contributions from Burtech. And we will be watching how you vote. Save the city. Do not make more low-income people homeless. We're all a paycheck away from being homeless.
Thank you. George Bombardier?
My name is George Bombardier. Any increase of outgoing bills means I have a decrease of spending money. I'm on a set income. I get X amount of dollars. Every dollar that I have to pay out means a dollar less that I have to live on. I can't ask for a raise because we got a $5 raise this year from Social Security, and already they're digging into it. Now, a $5 raise from Social Security isn't much. You know, they don't seem to give us much. But each year, everything keeps going up, the gas and everything. Now the trash. What am I to do? I mean, I'm trying to fight for what I got, and I don't have much to fight with. I mean, I don't know what to say about it, but geez, I want something going on here. I mean, it ain't much, 1.92, that's not much. But I sure would like to get a 1.92 raise in my pay, because that would be a hell of a lot of money to spend, you know. I mean, I don't know what to do. That's about all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you. Ray Hassan?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff. My name is Ray Hassan. I am the owner of Wilson Towing. I'm here to talk to you guys because at your last city council meeting, you guys voted to approve a 7th carrier for towing.
Mr. Hassan, this is about item number 26 on the agenda.
Oh, I filled out a slip for stuff that's not on the agenda.
Okay, we'll have you come back at another
problem.
time. Thank you. Maggie Knorr?
Greetings and namaste. I'll make it quick. You represent us, not the other cities. So who is benefiting? I walk these streets going door to door, getting to know these very intelligent people of our city. I hear their cries. Do you? Thank you.
I emailed.
Carmelo.
So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Burtec. Now, earlier you guys were discussing your code of conduct, and it says, the purpose of the meetings of the mayor and city council is to conduct the people's business in an efficient and orderly fashion for the benefit of all people. Well, I don't think raising the trash rate is for the benefit of all people. I don't think outsourcing the trash was for the benefit of all people. And as I sat here and I listened to these people, I was fighting the tears, okay? Because I know that people live like this. I've been a landlord for a lot of years. I see the kind of money that people in this city get. We are 80% income. When you look at us, most of our population makes under $15,000 a year. So not only are you raising the trash, we have the highest user utility rate around. We have annexed out our fire department. We now spend $154 per year per annum that can go up 3% forever. Okay, and we haven't seen the service. You don't know how many times I've had to call Burtec and say, hey, why didn't you pick up my dumpster? I've never seen a street sweeper. I seen one about 2 weeks ago, and I almost had a heart attack. I said, where'd a street sweeper come from? I've never seen one on the street. I've never seen one in my neighborhood. I've never seen one in front of my office. And then, the craziest thing happens the other day. I'm at my office, and these guys from Burtec are weed whacking this front part of my yard. And I'm like, hey, man, what are you doing in my yard? Oh, well, the city pays us to take care of the sidewalks. I'm like, been here for 23 years and never seen you. Okay, so if this is the first time I'm seeing you, where have you been? Okay, and then I'm thinking to myself, well, I always pay the yard guy to do this. So if they're supposed to be doing this when I drive around and I see all these weeds on the sidewalk, then I'm thinking, hey, Burtec is supposed to be doing that. And then when I read today and I said, oh, you guys got to renegotiate the agreement, then I said to myself, people didn't really think when they wrote this agreement. If you're already in renegotiations and there's already problems, then you guys weren't effectively doing the business when you did it, and you probably shouldn't have been doing it. Last but not least, we have city block grant funds. City block grant funds could be used to supplement this increase for the people with low income. If it's $5 a month that they have to pay, great. We get $7.5 million a year. Let's use $5 a month for all the people who qualify, and let's help them out. If we're so eager to give Burtec money that I don't really believe that they're earning, then hey, let's give them that money. We don't think really about the people or the people's business, because the 1% are not the people in the city of San Bernardino. We are a different kind of people. We are a melting pot. We are business owners. We are poor. We are middle class. Most people are poor. Okay, we're white, we're black, we're Mexican, we're all different kind of races. We're Korean, we're Chinese, we're Filipino. We're not Rancho and we're not Highland. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. That concludes public speakers for item number 26. City Manager.
Mayor, members of the council, just a couple of items. I wanted to remind you, Mike Aragon is here. I don't think Colbert's here, but Mike is here. He can answer any questions that the council may have. This is not renegotiating the agreement. Remember, under the terms of the agreement, they are allowed to ask for certain types of increases, and the increases with respect to the 5%, that would be a maximum of 5%, but each time they will be responsible for walking through with staff what the CPI in this region is, and then we will make recommendations to you based on that. With respect to regulations, we are looking at a parking regulatory program. That does need to be a full program so that we can make sure that we post the signs, that we have active enforcement. That will be coming back to the council at a later date. So again, Mike's here if you'd like to address anything, or if you have any questions of him. Again, I wanted to make sure that you're aware that he is in the audience and can address any specific questions you have about service.
Thank you. Councilmember Nichol.
Well, I just wanted to say that I think we all realize as prices go up, and this is based on what's called the Consumer Price Index, which is the price of all goods. I think if we go back, a number of years, certainly we've seen prices of everything go up. And what the Consumer Price Index is it looks at a basket of consumer prices and then looks at what that rate is. And I think one of the challenges we had as a city was we really didn't conduct those rate increases that were necessary at the time we had the service under city operations. So I think this is reasonable. I've looked at the numbers. I think the consumer price index is something that is a reasonable benchmark to use as a mechanism to adjust prices. Nobody wants to raise prices. I think we all get that. But certainly if we look at a gallon of milk 5 years ago, much different today than it was then. A gallon of gas, much different than it was. So I think this is reasonable, and I applaud our staff for working with BirdTech. And I think this is a way we create a sustainable service that unfortunately we did have to contract out. It wasn't an easy decision, but I think it was one that was necessary given the circumstance. And I think it was because we didn't make these types of decisions in the past. So it's not easy to do this, but I think it is necessary, and I think it is reasonable. So I will move to support. Thank you.
Councilman Valdivia.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to address the organic compost, Ms. Aldridge. The BirdTech has been a fabulous partner with us, and on certain occasions, they do provide organic compost in our city. In fact, at the end of the month, the one coming up is March 31st. That's the last Saturday of the month, with the exception, I think, of December because of Christmas and New Year's. BirdTech is a committed partner. They've been with us for the last 3-4 years doing these community dump days. Every resident in our city is allowed a free dump, 2 at the curb for big bulky items, and then a community dump the last Saturday of every month, with the exception of December. And these opportunities also present a good opportunity to community cleanup for your own neighborhood, in particular infill opportunities that might have a big couch or water heater or whatnot. The other opportunity is the organic compost. That compost is available, I think maybe once or twice a year that organic compost is available. So watch your water bill and some information. It's usually printed very clearly if there's going to be organic compost. So good opportunity. I understand your needs on the fertilizer and the compost aspect, but I have seen that. And regarding the street sweeping, Mr. Boisvert, we spoke and appreciate your comments here tonight. Thank you, sir, for coming. I do hear you. Ms. City Manager, I'd like to follow up on the street sweeping component that Mr. Boisvert has suggested. I'd like to really see a better improved communication from our team out to the public on street sweeping. I think they need that. I think they need the assurance that city government is responsive to the needs of our community with addressing some of these street sweeping concerns. So maybe a bulletin insert or community newsletter type of aspect. I think you've already kind of highlighted some of that, but I do occasionally get the calls on street sweeping issues. It is an important aspect. I'm glad that our city has returned to provide that street sweeping. It's been contracted out via BirdTech. BirdTech is keenly aware. I interact and cross-pollinate with BirdTech quite frequently on the aspects of street sweeping. It is a legal requirement in a very large part with certain requirements that we have in our Clean Waterways Act and whatnot. So this is a legal requirement on our part, and we are the custodian of those resources. And so I would assure that our team is doing the best we can. If you're not seeing them, it's because you're probably out at the market or library or doctor's office. But if we can make sure that we have compliance from BirdTech sweeping and making sure that our routes are cleaned up and accessible.
I think one of the things that will kind of help with that is, now that, and I'm thrilled that we now have a new public works director and deputy director, so we are making checks, and I think Mike would tell you we've been pretty active in terms of ensuring that they're where they're supposed to be, and so I think some of that will change. The other thing that we can do, maybe we put some inserts in the actual trash bill so that people know there is a schedule. We've worked with BirdTech on that, and so now we do have a schedule that we can rely upon, so we can do some work to get that message out in our city newsletter and also maybe even in the trash bills.
Well, and I think you alluded to the triangulated win. BirdTech wins, we win, our citizens win. Yep. I think the quality the service that has already been in existence for the last 2 years with Burtech would only suggest an even greater benefit to the quality of life in our neighborhoods. When I see that couches are removed and bulky items are picked up, and there's this consistent, we had a few hiccups, we're not perfect, folks, but we've cleaned up our operations, and I think we're headed in the right direction to get a quick turnaround to pick up bulky items. The right-of-ways are getting cleaned up, and so I'm a big, I mean, you hear me all the time, Andrea, and you hear from my residents.
Want to hear from all of you on the
Well,
dais.
I know you do, I know you do, but I can only speak for myself.
Well, I can assure you
And-
it's 8.
And so the importance of us getting out there, removing those bulky items from the public right-of-way is crucial. It improves our public appearance, and our blight issue is reduced, and so I'm just grateful for good partners, and I think this is just a great win all around if we can get those communiques out in the water bulletins and community newsletters, because everyone wins here. And if you're a resident, even more, because you have now that final Saturday in the month to dump even more stuff and trash and help clean our city up.
And I think just, if I could expand upon that for just a brief moment, that's part of what I think our process right now with Burtech is. They came in 2016. There were a lot of services that they assumed responsibility for. I think now, as our Public Works Department is rebuilding, we have terrific leadership. I'm proud of the work that the Public Works Department is doing, and it is getting better every day. Now it's having that discussion about how can we best serve the community. And Burtech does, one of the things that has not been mentioned, they are an active participant in our quality of life program. So as we're going around and picking up things, Burtech's got a truck right there with us, and now we're trying to capture the tons and tons of stuff that is being removed from our public right-of-ways. So again, I think as we move forward, it will become much stronger partnership.
Thank you. Councilmember Mulvihill?
Thank you, Mayor. I just think that this conversation, I mean, obviously the community concern, but the reality is the rates have not increased for 10 years. Everything increases every year. It's unfortunate, but that's the way things work. Also, government, some people said that the services of Burtech are worse than the services that the government provides. That doesn't even sound true to me. That somehow government can provide better services than a private business? You got to be kidding me. It just doesn't work that way. We didn't raise our rates in the city for 10 years. You should complain about the bad services because we couldn't provide them. And that's one of the reasons overall we went bankrupt. We simply weren't providing the services because we didn't raise the rates. And so the point is, and I don't want to dwell on this too much, but the point is that somebody comes in and says there's no street signs. They're coming. It's not something that's speculated on. The signs are coming. It's not just because we're going to be in the sign business for a while, but it's federal regulation. We have to do this. And so they're coming. And I'm sure that when they go up, we'll have people here lining up complaining about the fact that we got to move our cars, This is just like down at Laguna Beach, for crying out. This isn't Laguna Beach. So I'm sure that's going to take place. So, but again, we're the council. We get all the stuff. Very seldom do we get, thank you for doing this. Although every now and then we do. But, I mean, we often, well, I'm going to go on. But the point is, there's one other thing. The gentleman who was complaining about his street not being swept. The man who's been shaking his head up here is the man you want to talk to. Okay? You don't have to worry about calling the council office and a nice young woman will give you an answer. You can talk to the man right here. And the motto is, we'll get it done. We're going to take care of it. Well, paraphrase. He'll take care of it. That's his motto. So if you don't talk to him tonight, you're wasting your trip down here because he'll take care of it. Okay? And that's all I have to say. Thank you. But again, it's been seconded. Has this been seconded? I'll second it.
Ca-
It looks like.
Yeah, Henry moved it.
Yes,
Henry
yeah.
moved it.
Henry moved it. Excuse me. Councilmember Nickel moved it. And Councilmember
Mayor.
Richard.
Now that is-
Well, I
Oh,
was
I'm
going to
sorry.
make a comment, but I think everything has been said, and I agree with everything. And I was going to bring up the illegal dumping. And I know I talk about it all the time, over and over and over. And when I make the phone call, Burtech comes and picks up the trash. And for that alone, we should be thankful. And I always say, when you see something, say something. When you see people dumping furniture in empty lots, you guys, please say something. Say something, because it's going to cost you money if you don't. Let's go after the people that are doing this, so that way that we don't have to continue to have these rate increases. Because I know we're all happy when we see that all of the furniture and everything else is cleaned up. And I just want to thank Burtech for that, because it happens in all of our neighborhoods, to be honest. But I just truly believe, because I represent the 6th Ward, it happens there more often. And I am just so thankful that it is being taken care of in a timely manner. It doesn't happen overnight, but it happens, and I'm thankful for that.
Thank you. Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you, Mayor. My comments will be brief, because I think a lot of the comments that I wanted to make have been made by my colleagues. I love Burtech. I'm one of their huge supporters, and yes, I belong to the Quality of Life team, where Burtech is a huge partner. And it's great, because when the Quality of Life team goes out with RPD, you'll see a truck right next to it. So they have contributed to our community, and I know that this increase is a hardship for our city, especially seniors and those that are poor, because I represent that venue. But we haven't had an increase in 10 years, and let's face it, everything is going up. Our DMV registration rates are going up. Costco gas is higher than it's ever been. Groceries, rent, what have you. So we have to do this, and I'm not crazy about it, but it is a service that is provided to the community, and it is mandated by law. So has this been already?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm ready to vote.
Moved and
Mayor, you need to
seconded.
close the public hearing.
City Manager.
I just wanted to, it may very well be that Mike should maybe address kind of what his plans, I mean, he's heard some things, and I think they've made some improvements with respect to street sweeping, and so it might be beneficial just to have Mike at least address
If you'll come to the
those for
podium,
community.
Mike, thank you.
Are you going to swear him in? No.
Up at the mic, the mic. There you go.
Do you feel like you need to be sworn in, Mike?
I solemnly swear
To tell what? To tell the truth?
to tell the truth.
Very good.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you, Mayor and Council. Mike Aragon, Vice President with Burtech Waste Industries. Frankly, I've been very happy to hear some of the comments that were addressed this evening. I've made notes on names and situations and circumstances. And as it has been brought up by council, first and foremost, there hasn't been a rate increase in quite a long time. Costs are escalating. Even the CPI at 1.92% doesn't nearly cover the cost factors that we run into, yet we continue to move forward. One of the things that I make a commitment to the council, mayor and council, and the community, it seems to have come up quite a bit tonight, is with regard to, first and foremost, the street sweeping situation. We will definitely look into that and make sure that the contractor that I have sweeping the streets in the city of San Bernardino, which also happens to be the same contractor that sweeps the streets in many of our other cities, Highland being one of them, is doing the job that they need to do. I can't thank you enough for, first of all, the relationship that we have with the city manager and now our new public works director. We are meeting on a weekly basis, whereas before it was once a month or once every other month. because there was no staff really that we could work with as we were trying to transition. Trish has been just an extreme help, and we work through issues every week. As was said, it's not perfect, but we are working towards that. I truly do believe that in the last almost 2 years now that we have been serving the city of San Bernardino, there have been marked improvements. Signs on street sweeping, that again is a city matter. We'll salute and move forward once that's decided on. And again, from a rate standpoint, while we do have guidelines, the rates are minimal. I think from a residential standpoint, this increase that we're talking about right now is 44 cents a month. And that does go to support not only our drivers and our equipment and operations, but it goes to the disposal costs, the processing costs, recycling, and so on and so forth. So I'm here to commit on behalf of Burtech Waste Industries that we will continue to strive for the best service that we can provide. We'll address all of these issues with staff, and please, if there are situations that come about, please let us know. We can't fix it if we don't know about it, and once we know about it, as Councilman Mulvihill mentioned, we'll take care of it. So I thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Mike, I have a question for you.
Sure.
I was made aware a number of years ago that there is a community that has all of their trash bins put on one side of the street
Yes.
for the purpose of helping actually reduce the cost of the fuel. Instead of having to go down the same street twice, going down the street once and picking up all of the trash bins. What's the feasibility of that potential option?
Well, if we had one straight row and the roads were just in one direction, that might have some level of feasibility, but routing for trash services or for mail or for anything else that goes house to house has to encompass the most efficient way to get to each address. And if you go up one street, sooner or later you're going to have to come back down that street. So when we route, we may go up a mile or two up one street, and even though we're right next door, right across the street is another barrel. And we won't hit that barrel maybe for an hour or an hour and a half, because as we work our way back. But it is all about a pattern and what they call holistic routing as well, that we approach the cans that are out there. So if you had one long street or a couple of just main arterials and that's all it was, that might have make a little more sense. But with all the intricacies of our roads, cul-de-sacs, main boulevards and residential streets, at least in the 30 years I've been working through the business, I think what we do out there is the way it should be done.
Thank you.
You bet.
I believe we have a motion and a second, and the public hearing is now closed.
Mayor,
Everybody voted.
on item 26, the motion to approve was made by Mr. Nickel, the second by Mr. Mulvihill, and the item passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Mayor, I would recommend that the city clerk announce the number of protests, because that's an intricate part of the resolution that you're adopting right now.
Thank you.
My office received, including what Ms. Ibarra handed over, 49 protest letters. We deemed them all to be valid.
Thank you. Next is item number 27. It's a public hearing. This public hearing is now open. Recommendation is to introduce the first reading, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of San Bernardino, California, adopting the categorical exemption and approving Development Code Amendment 17-07 to amend Chapter 19.19, the Main Street Overlay District of the City of San Bernardino Development Code, to add an adaptive reuse overlay to allow for the conversion of existing commercial and office buildings to residential units within the specified areas, and to adopt a resolution of the mayor and the city council The City of San Bernardino adopting the categorical exemption and approving development permit type P 17-05 to allow the conversion of an existing commercial office building containing approximately 6,844 square feet to a residential apartment complex comprised of 9 dwelling units on 2 parcels containing a total of approximately 0.32 acres located at 1595 North Arrowhead Avenue within the commercial zone, office zone. And schedule the first reading and adoption of the above ordinance to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Mayor and City Council on April 4, 2018. Mr. Persico?
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor, Council, and members of the public. As the Mayor has just read, this is a proposal. There's actually 2 parts to the proposal. The first is a development code amendment to add provisions for the adaptive reuse of older historic buildings. The second action is to approve a specific project under those provisions at 1595 North Arrowhead Avenue. I'd like to kind of start out with how we got here and why this proposal is before the City Council. This is part of the overall development code update that staff has been working on for the past several years. It's coming forward at this time because we have a specific project that we think is a very good candidate for this type of use. The adaptive reuse is really a growing trend for older cities, and what it does is it recognizes that the nature of retail and office use has changed. Toys R Us just filed for bankruptcy on Monday, so I think everybody is aware that there's really a reduced demand for commercial space, office space, and retail space. And what this code amendment does is really reflect the nature of what's happening in the broader marketplace. The city needs to respond and really reduce its amount of commercial zoning. And what that does is that actually boosts the value of the remaining commercial space. What we have in the downtown, what we have on Hospitality, some of the commercial corridors on Baseline and Highland. It adds value to the remaining commercial base. What it also does is really acknowledge that some of the older buildings, the office buildings that were built in the 40s, 50s, and 60s still have value. There's no reason to demolish those buildings. They can be repurposed and converted to office uses, or excuse me, to residential uses. And it also preserves the character of those streets. There's an existing built form, particularly if you think on Arrowhead, Mountain View, Sierra Way. A lot of those streets have a very residential feel to them, although they are zoned commercial office. So allowing those buildings to remain in their existing form but convert their use helps to preserve the neighborhood. That's really why we're doing this. Excuse me. Now I'll go into some of the standards that that staff has put together. Chantal Power has been the case planner on this, but I'll let Chantal talk about some of the specifics of the project. So what the overlay does is it allows for flexibility in the development standards for the conversion of older office buildings to residential uses. All fire life safety requirements need to be met, so they need to satisfy minimum building code standards for residential uses. They need to get approval from the building official as well as the fire department and the fire marshal for going forward. And it allows for the modernization of the building systems, in other words, new electrical systems, new plumbing systems, to convert those from office use to residential use. The code does provide for flexibility in some of the development standards, so it wouldn't be viewed as new ground-up commercial or new ground-up residential. And then the adaptive reuse standards are tailored to buildings that were built prior to 1991. They do have to go through a development permit process, so it's not just an over-the-counter. There would be notification that's given out as for all other projects. And I think one of the things that I forgot to say on the background and the why, This really helps the city meet its housing requirements. The council at the last meeting talked about efforts that the state is making to force cities to meet its housing requirements, and these code changes would certainly allow us to do that. And then on the application, I'll let Chantal talk about the specific application, but I would like to point out that the applicant for this project is a small contractor. He has been involved with the city on the Renew program for the receivership program, so he does have a track record with the city, and this program, we believe, is really tailored to the small builder contractor. And with that, again, I'll have Chantal talk about the actual development project that is the companion piece to this.
Okay, so development permit type P 17-05 identifies a specific location, a specific commercial office building on the southeast corner of 16th Street and North Arrowhead Avenue. This building has been burnt out. It's been vacant for at least 6 years. It's been used for unpermitted uses. And so we're looking at this and some of the other buildings in the area that have the same characteristics and just trying to find not a mandate, but another option for property owners to reuse these sites. This applicant has taken this office building and we're looking at providing 9 new apartment spaces. Not a huge development, but it does focus on a specific type of demographic that has been largely overlooked in the city. Some more single people, young professionals, maybe some older seniors that don't need as much housing. It's taking this building, again, that has been burnt out and vacant and modernized it. As you can see, these are the details that they're looking to kind of refresh the building. This is what it looks like now. So you can see that the architecture is a little bit out of date, sorry about that. So this will modernize this will reoccupy this building and just add benefit to the neighborhood, which is largely already residential. There's several abutting or adjacent apartment buildings and some single-family residences in the neighborhood, so it definitely wouldn't be out of character with what's existing there right now. Okay. So the Planning Commission already adopted the resolution 2018-011, forwarding a recommendation to the mayor and city council to introduce the first reading of the ordinance approving Development Code Amendment number 17-07 and adopt resolution adopting the categorical exemption and approving development permit type P 17-05, and then also to schedule the second reading of the ordinance for April 4th.
I'll move
for approval.
Second. With a comment.
Does that conclude your report?
It does. One final thing that I'd like to point out, this specific project is a market rate project. Chantal did talk about an unmet need, and that is really for smaller units for individuals. So that's the one added fact. But yes, we are done with our presentation.
Thank you,
Mayor.
We have one public speaker, Carmel Rowe.
I do. So I liked how you guys approved without even hearing the public. You know, I actually would agree with the residential zoning for that piece of property. But the problem that I have is the apartment units. That street is horrible. You know, do you guys know where Little Zion is, the blue apartments? Well, that's what that is going to turn into. Why not build 4 houses or like condo townhomes on that? You know, why put more apartments Those big apartments are the problem in the city. It's not 5, it's not 4, it's not 9. Okay, that is a big apartment complex. You know what that brings? Do you know what that brings? I would rather see it vacant. Okay, I mean, the residential, great, let's rezone it. That's what a lot of those streets need. Okay, they shouldn't be commercial because they are residential. But putting an apartment, and then the way that one looked over there, to me, it looked like a jail. I mean, to me, it was like, let's set the bar a little higher. Let's have, let me want to move in over there. Let me want to go and live right there on that corner. Make it to where it's nice and it's not scary. Make it to where it would be safe, where you could get some median income. Okay, and so if we have these housing unit that we need to meet, I mean, and they're over there talking about smaller. Well, being a property manager in this city for 23 years, do you know what I need the most of? 2 bedrooms. It's not 1 bedrooms, it's not smaller units, it's 2 bedrooms. If I have a 2-bedroom, I could rent, if I had 100 2-bedrooms, I could rent them all in an hour in this city. Okay, so when we think about things and we think about moving forward, we need to think about what we are going to put there. And if we are going to allow that, that is a problem. I guarantee you in 3 to 36 months, I'll be here and I'll say, hey guys, here's the pictures of what's going on outside that nice apartment complex that you built. And you guys will all be like, trying to push it off like, hey, I didn't just say that, but really I did. Okay? I've told you guys a lot of things that you push off and you don't listen. I've been in this city for 41 years. I've been in real estate in this city for 23 years. I've collected rent money in this city for 23 years. I get out of my car places most people don't in this city. I know the tenants. I know the property owners. I know what goes on in the low-income area, even the high-income areas. I know what goes on. So please, 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 please listen to me when I tell you about the crime and the crime-free housing and the craziness that goes on in these type of units. And then are we going to turn them into Section 8 units? Are they going to be low-income? I mean, come on. Let's not do that to the street. Let's not do that to the single-family residences. Let's build something that creates home ownership. We could build duplexes. They're called duplex homes. You could build 4, 6, 8 there. Okay? Let's not build an apartment complex. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Pasico, has the project developer submitted a pro forma for the project?
They did not submit a pro forma. We typically don't require those for private projects unless they're seeking some sort of public funding. So we have not reviewed their pro forma.
The property that you're considering for the overlay, the AR1 and AR2, has there been some analysis for the number of properties that may qualify for the conversion and what the potential cost would be to the city and versus the revenue potential generated by having some of those vacant properties occupied to help the council to have some data to make that assessment?
We did not do an economic analysis of this. I think, yes, there is a trade-off of potential sales tax for property tax. If these buildings were occupied as retail uses, then the city would generate sales tax off of them. I think to answer your question, Mayor, directly, we didn't do an economic analysis, but if you look at the potential zoning, it only applies to the commercial, the CO zone properties built prior to 1991. So while the 2 areas that are outlined, the overlay area 1 and the overlay area 2, encompass a lot of properties, the actual properties that would be eligible under the new program are significantly less than what you have in those overlays. So I would imagine it's probably only 20% of those properties that would be eligible under the program, and therefore a much smaller amount of people that would actually take advantage of the program.
Would it make sense to be looking at maybe starting with one of those overlays for a possible exploration as to how that might unravel over the course of a couple of years before?
Absolutely, yes.
Because it's a pretty big overlay area that you've got Certainly, the one, I think it's AR2.
Right.
Is that the one where the property
That is,
is
yes.
being
and
developed?
It is possible that the council could move forward with one of the areas, the AR2 area, because there is a actual project there, and not move forward with the AR1. That is something that we talked about at the staff level, and we're certainly comfortable moving ahead with that if that's the wish of the majority of the council.
Councilman Nickel?
Yeah, well, I think this gets back to the discussions we've been having in our strategic workshop about, operating in a corporate paradigm. Land use is one of the most fundamental responsibilities we have as city council, as a policy-making body, and I take it very seriously. I think that a lot of the challenges we've been confronting, certainly since I've been on the council, a lot of the challenges we've confronted as part of our bankruptcy are directly tied to the fact that we probably haven't done as good a job in terms of really ensuring that our land use is optimized. I certainly am open to the idea of adaptive reuse. I think it's, I agree, I've seen other cities do it well. I want to make sure that our policy is founded on good, solid corporate paradigm principles. I would even go so far as to say that I'm open to the idea of having an AR zone predicated on the fact that each of these AR projects needs to provide a pro forma. We can no longer subsidize public services, and even though you call it market rate, some of the worst properties in the city in terms of the problems and the service, calls for service, are actually market rate properties. And so just because it's market rate does not mean it's going to be a high value cost benefit to the city. So I think we do need to take this very seriously. I think that I am open to the idea. I'm certainly willing to consider this particular project as perhaps a pilot, but I would say I want to see a pro forma. I want the developer to demonstrate that this is going to be a net benefit to the city, that this isn't just simply going to convert a potential sales tax generating property into a property tax development of which the city now, under current agreements, gets very little, if any, property tax revenue, which means we'll be subsidizing it. And maybe adaptive reuse should perhaps consider some degree of a retail component, mixed-use component. So I think you're going down the right road. I like this idea. I think we do need to think differently about these assets that we have. I really do view what we have in the city in terms of what properties we do have, both those that have structures on them and those that don't, as assets. They are assets. And we need to make sure that we optimize the use of those assets. So I would ask that we continue looking at this. I would like to start seeing some actual analysis, an actual economic cost benefit to what this policy would mean. I have a sense that it probably, if it's done right, could be a net benefit to the city. But I think we need to see, getting in this corporate paradigm, it's a trust but verify model now. And I think every project that comes to this council needs to operate on that trust but verify model, that we will consider the recommendations that come forward from industry and from staff, but you're also going to need to demonstrate some real numbers that show a net benefit to the city, that this isn't going to be a drain on the city in terms of providing service, increasing calls for service, and causing us to continue to go down a road in which it's costing the taxpayers of the city for each project like this we approve.
City Manager?
Just a couple of items in response to that. I concur with your comments, and it's the cost to the city, but it's also, we have had a whole host of people approach the council, the staff, the mayor's office, concerned with private properties, and really some of the issues we're having with some of the privately owned property in the city really comes down to management issues. And so in addition to the pro forma, I think really having an understanding of how they plan to manage that and use that property into the future. So I think we can certainly ask for some additional details as we vet these projects and make recommendations to you. As Mark started his presentation with, remember, one of the things that you asked the group to do, you established a working group to consider the development code amendment, and this is one of those items that is emerging from that group. I think as staff, we will go back now and talk about how, as we make those recommendations to you and to the Planning Commission, how can we then at least establish, certainly they will be based on assumptions and a series of assumptions, but at least provide some understanding to you as you consider those, what would be the economic impact of the various zone changes that we're talking about. Now, some of that we know will help with development because we're talking about consolidating, but there are some ways that we can help value some of that for you as we move forward.
Yeah, and I would just conclude by saying that, you know, some of the properties, it's kind of interesting. In fact, one of the properties that's being considered for redevelopment currently across from San Bernardino High School was an apartment complex that the city bought and tore down. And now we want to build apartments back there again. So, you know, it's sort of one of these things where, you know, we don't want to keep repeating, but at the same time, I think there are good ideas. I think there are good ways in which we can reuse some of these sites. But it has to be based on a solid economic footing. That's all I'm asking. Thanks.
Councilmember Mulvihill.
Yes, I think I really fully agree with Councilmember Nichols. What I would like to see, these are very large areas, very diverse areas. And what I'm thinking about, I'm very much in favor of the adaptive reuse idea, and reducing the number of empty commercial buildings would naturally tend to decrease the supply and increase the potential price that an individual might get for it. But what I'd like to do is reduce it to some target areas that Councilman Nichols talked about better to evaluate. And I think if we reduce them to, I'm looking at, you know, along Baseline, for example, and along D Street and Waterman specifically, and look specifically at those. That gives lots of opportunities for lots of options for people interested in converting a commercial building. And also, it's limited enough that we can, after a year or so, come back and take a look and just see how it's going. If we have such a large area, it kind of gets, you know, you get kind of a hodgepodge. You know, it's such a low density, we're not really sure, is it really, you know, doing what we want it to do? So what I would suggest is that, can we take a look at more limited areas along Waterman, along Baseline, along D Street possibly, rather than the whole area? And I'll also in the downtown area, you know, maybe, you know, I'm sort of thinking about, of course, you know, where the Salvation Army was and so forth. There's a lot of interest there, and the commercial buildings around there, for example, limit what we're looking at to those areas. Again, I really didn't do a quick thought process in terms of just what areas there would be most likely, but could you reduce the size a little bit? Think about
absolutely, we can. I actually have, in anticipation of some of this discussion, a proposed amendment for the council to look at that would just confine it to the AR2 area. If the council were ready to act on that tonight, I've got some changes here that we could hand out.
And I think what we recognize that we have one project that seems to make sense given and while they didn't provide a pro forma, we've had some very good conversations with them about how it would be managed, what they anticipate this being. Their goal would be to make it market rate. By only approving the AR portion, it still allows us to move forward with that project. And then we can come back at a later date with a broader analysis about some of the other areas. And then I would note just one last thing, and I think there are a couple of other comments from the dais. Remember, within the AR2 area, it really is only affecting the pink boxes. So even though it looks like a big area, it's really only the pink that would be affected. Yeah. Yeah. And this map's a little hard, but it's
Yeah.
pink, not, and there's kind of a salmon color. It's really that pinky color.
Yeah. Well, maybe that, again, if we sort of direct attention by, I'm looking here, maybe, it looks like along Waterman, and is
And
that?
Arrowhead.
Is it E Street or D Street?
Arrowhead,
Yeah.
D, and
If we just
Waterman.
look at those specific streets,
Right.
it makes it, again, when we go back and we do our analysis, we'll have a much better control to still give the options, but yet tighten it up a little bit.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And I think Councilman Valdivia had a question, but I would like to ask, who will manage the property?
I will let the applicant, the applicant is here. He does, like I say, own and hold on to the properties, but I'll certainly let him speak.
Hi, Jeff Howie for Ocean Investment Group, owner of the property at 1595.
Could you be sworn in by the city clerk?
So I do appreciate the council's consideration and the feedback that we received and the support of the city staff. The properties, there is an on-site manager for the property when we have of this size. And the issue that I heard was the sort of the how to take what is currently happening, the paradigm issue. So the paradigm shift has already happened. And so the movement of business, corporate business in the city has moved out east. And what has happened here is that has left this void of empty buildings or buildings that have been, partially rented. And so the situation that we're seeing there is that there's a real need for the housing, additional housing. What type of product that we produce is a higher end product. We did the project on 9th and G Street. That, again, was a fire burned property that had been abandoned. There was drug use, prostitution, everything you could imagine there for quite some time. And by just changing that, it really changed the face of that corner and of the community. It's brought the values up, the rent rates, the values for commercial properties in the city have gone up significantly in the last 2 years since we've been doing these projects. And the rents have also increased as well. So I think that, we can look at doing some pro forma type numbers, and I appreciate that. But I think that you will see that the usage, at least what we hear from police and fire and code enforcement, is, oh my goodness, we spend so much time coming to these vacant buildings, and the community around is, afraid. And the people that come to us when we're there working on them are telling us, hey, this is great. This has been vacant. There's people coming in here and doing all these different types of illegal activities, and we're fearful, and we want to see the community be cleaned up, and we want to see families be able to move in here. And so I think that by taking these projects, we actually own one right across the street as well that we're considering the same type of project. So it really will change the face from these buildings that are currently have very little use and are actually just being destroyed, and are taxing the city significantly with all your resources. So these people, so the police and fire are not able to go to a call because they're coming to these vacant buildings. So these are some of the dynamics that we're seeing, and I think that it's something for consideration.
Thank you. Appreciate you taking the time to explain to us some of the benefits that should accrue to the city as a result of moving forward with this project, which I'm not hearing any objection to the project. We think really does have a lot of merit to it. What we're interested in is wanting to understand a little bit better about how the adaptive reuse overlays will actually be some analysis and some data. I think conceptually we're feeling that there's a sense of agreement. Just, I think for at least myself, I'm interested in what is the potential impact here, and that's why that economic analysis, I think, even though we know that it's estimates, it does give us a sense of what's the positive net benefit, as Councilman Nickel has been making issue about. Is there some way to bring that to the council to be able to understand a little bit better how those changing that, because it's a fairly significant swath of land, although we do understand, I think that helps to understand that it's just I don't know if it's salmon or pink, I'm not quite sure which one, I can't tell from here, but maybe if someone could point to them, that would.
It's the pink.
Okay, all right, so that really, it makes a big difference in terms of understanding that that's really not that entire area that would be impacted. It's those commercial properties. Then the next piece question that resonates in my mind is how many of them are potential, how many of them are vacant right now, and how many potentially could be converted. So, Councilman Valdivia was next.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to take a different route. I appreciate Councilman Nickel and certainly Mayor Davis on some of their questions. I think, however, it derails the opportunity that we have to really consider some innovative strategies to apply for the downtown and certainly in business corridors. I think the comments made are duplicit in two ways. First off, if in fact we want a downtown thriving component here, then, and we all have agreed that our downtown corridor needs a major overhaul and major resuscitation, then AR1 is a certainly important ingredient in this whole discussion. And so I think it is a little duplicit for us to kind of throw this AR1 component down the stream and jeopardize some real positive growth. Yes, there may be the need to have a pro forma. Maybe there needs to be a crime-free housing element, and I'll get to that in just a second. But I think, this has already come through Planning Commission. They have blessed this. They have talked about it, chatted it, marked it up. You've counseled them. I don't know if there is a need to somehow even crush the opportunity for our downtown corridor. That's where I'm going. I understand maybe AR2, but I also have a question on this. I mean, you must have a very good crystal ball, Mr. Persico, but how did you come up with this?
I actually requested it because my concern is the council developed a working group of professionals that you asked to come up with a development code.
Sure.
Proposed changes. That group is still working through their issues, and it was a little counterintuitive to me that we would take this one item. So I asked questions when I realized that this was Mr. Howie's project. He and I actually had discussed his project. I had already looked at that, but I wasn't sure that the council was ready, given the fact that you have a development code amendment that is being developed, and they will be making recommendations to you. In fact, we're now working with them to try to schedule a joint meeting of the Planning Commission and the Mayor and City Council for about late April, because they will have a draft of that document. So I don't see this as delaying that too much. We don't currently have any proposed projects in that area, so I wanted to be able to move forward with the one where we have a developer
That's
ready
not
to
my
go.
question, though. My question is, how did you have the foreknowledge
Because I
that
felt this
Mr.
was too
Nickel
far-reaching.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know about Mr. Nichols' comments. I felt this was too
Because-
far-reaching since we have not had this conversation.
Because this
with the council.
adaptive resolution that you presented to us, Mr. Persico, somehow, did you have a conversation with Mr. Nichol?
No, he received the direction from me this morning.
Okay. And how did you somehow,
Because I looked at this and it seems counterintuitive that if you have a commission that you've asked and a working group of professionals to look at something, I wanted to make sure that they really fully had a chance to make their full
and
recommendations.
so you
to the
consulted the professional group that you have?
You, as a mayor and council body, established a working group.
I understand that, but did you
developers.
call them and ask them, or how did you come up with? I'm just trying to find out, how did you come up with this alternative?
This area seemed too large, given it was something that had not been fully explored with
Okay.
all of you. So one of the ways I was aware that the proposed project was in AR2, so it seemed, since we had not discussed what your ultimate goals are for the broader downtown concept, that we could move forward and have an option for you to move forward in case you wanted that group to continue further vetting potential discussions about adaptive reviews. There was a way to let this project move forward and not do the broader one in case there was issues.
Okay, so I would like to see the floor motion go forward. I respect some of the comments made by my colleagues. I'd like to insert that as part of some of the conditions. The floor motion is to approve both AR1 and AR2. I think if we can complement some of the suggestions made by Mayor Davis and Henry Nickel and others, that's fine. And also, I think crime-free housing does need to be an element here. I hear from the public speaking dais here that this could turn into very well another headache for our city police services or city fire services and whatnot. So the crime-free element, I think the crime-free housing element is very, should be intertwined here in these new development procedures. I'll be supporting a full passage of this tonight on the floor. And then finally, the third way, this is a little bit duplicit. About 2.5 years ago, if you look at the big map here, the full council passed a huge swath of land from about 3rd Street all the way up to all along the Waterman corridor. It went for several square miles, and I didn't hear boo from anyone up here. It was a huge, huge swath of land in which we did a complete overhaul and some new designations. And I say, let's move this. This is good for our city. It's good new use for commercial abandoned buildings. I don't want to get in the way of development. This is a good opportunity. It's great to see new uses of older facilities. If we have the checks and we have a commitment from our city manager that we can on the back end somehow provide these compromises to both the council here, which then I say let's go with it. That would be my recommendation.
Councilman Oldhill?
The speaker here, you refurbished a place on 9th and G, did you say?
Correct.
Was that a house that was in receivership?
Correct.
So it really wasn't commercial, was it? It was a house, right?
That's correct. It's not the exact same type of project,
Yeah,
but it was
yeah.
just a project that was in, abandoned disarray.
But now it's an apartment, more or less?
Correct, 9 units.
9 units, okay. Because, again, I noticed that house, and it reflects well upon the receivership program, that this followed it entirely through, and now it's a piece of commercial property that is generating rents for you and property taxes for us, and it was abandoned, it was burned out, and so forth. And so it goes along with, in other words, looking at the central city, are there other opportunities like that? And so I guess, and there are. There's large houses downtown, over on Sierra Way, particularly Sierra Way and about 9th Street, 8th Street, someplace around there, that could really benefit by a makeover. And so thank you for doing that. That's
Thank you.
brightens the downtown and it really benefits the city.
Appreciate it.
Councilman Charette?
There have been a lot of good comments made on this adaptive reuse, and I support the idea as well. I'm a little concerned right now because I tend to agree that maybe we should back up and just look at I guess it's AR2, which would allow this project to move forward because it does appear to be a good project that we could then, again, kind of synthesize all of this and take a look at how this is working and not jump the shark, so to speak, and just jump out there and do the whole thing. My question after making that comment is about, I'm looking here that it appears there's been a motion and a second and a vote, at least from what I can see on my, and so I want to retract my vote as it shows here, and I don't know, I think I made the motion, but I'd like, if you took me as the motion maker, I want to retract that as well, and maybe go back to a substitute motion.
I have Mr. Valdivia made the motion, Mr. Barrios
that was made, and then I think I actually pushed my button for a yes, and I'd like to retract that. I don't know if
Are you going to make a substitute motion, sir?
Just real briefly, Jeff, thank you for taking on the task of 9th and G Street. I go by there every day on my way to work, and I remember when it was a shell because it'd been burnt down so many times and you had the criminal element. I go by now and kids are playing, somebody's mowing the grass, they're decorated with the seasons, and it's really refreshing, and we need those throughout the city, so I just wanted to thank you for that. Very few probably calls for service, or none at all, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Nickel?
Yeah, and maybe I didn't, I probably wasn't as clear as maybe I should have been. I like the idea of adaptive reuse. I want to make that clear right now. I think it's great. I think what we want to do, though, is ensure that that it is aligned with the needs of the city and the community. Obviously, sales tax is going to be our bread and butter for the foreseeable future. And I appreciate the work you've done. And actually, I would invite you, I'd like to see us work with you and find some creative ways that maybe we can refine our adaptive reuse policy. I've been really impressed with, I know some of my colleagues here, we've had the opportunity to visit some cities throughout the United States that have been in some rather similar circumstances to San Bernardino. We like to think, well, we're different from everybody else, our problems are unique. Well, not so. We've got a lot of challenges that a lot of other communities have found ways to address and resolve them. One of those, I think, is this idea of adaptive reuse. I was really impressed with South Memphis and what they've done there, more or less repurposing a lot of the old warehouse district in the south of the city, and they're now, they're condos, there are really high-end retail shops there, there's software companies that have gone in. I mean, they've really found an innovative way to take an area of the city that for years was dilapidated, crime-infested, and turn it into a place that now is one of the highest demand areas of the city to live in. So, and I think we can do some very similar things with professionals and people like yourself that really have a good understanding of the market. Certainly we are where we are now. I agree with you. We've seen an exodus of business, of employers, certainly private sector employers in the city. I don't think that's a trend that necessarily has to hold true indefinitely. And I think projects like this and of this sort have the ability to turn that trend back around. And so I think the idea of innovative mixed use, first level retail, one of the other things I hear from a lot of residents, especially people that live in these areas of the city where we have, we have very impoverished areas, people don't have easy access to grocery stores or to other retail, a coffee shop or something that, they can frequent and create that sense of community once again and really feel like this is a place where I want to live and stay and raise my family. So I think there's opportunities to look at this type of project in the context of an overall strategy that I think begins to rebrand some of these areas of the city that we currently view as problematic into real opportunities. Convert a problem to an opportunity is really the idea of the entrepreneurial spirit. So I applaud you. I support the project that you're working on. I support the work that staff is doing. My request is that we simply do maybe a little bit of a deeper dive, a little bit more refinement, but I think this is definitely a step in the right direction. And so I would like to put forward a substitute motion that we approve this project tonight. I think I want to see this project move forward, and then direct staff to work on maybe some refinement of this AR policy in such a way that we can ensure that we have some sense of an economic cost benefit when these projects come back to us. I'm still sort of on the fence if I want to just have a carte blanche, we'll just let all these projects go. I think at some point maybe we can get to there, but I think I'd still want to see these projects come back to us at least for an interim period, so we can start to see, okay, what's working, what's not, and then maybe at some point then say, okay, now run with it and go with it, and staff, you have some discretion now to more or less make the judgment in terms of how best to assess each project on its merits.
I'll second that.
And just before because I want to provide some clarity, with the way our code is currently written, for you to approve this particular project, we would need you then to approve at least that AR2 section.
The entire section.
The entire section. Now you could, and let me ask Stephen if he can quickly craft language. Could we though, I know I'm not, but that's okay, Stephen, I have ultimate faith and confidence in your ability and I can help you. But I think that they're also being sensitive to the other issue. The other part of that is, rather than just adopting the ordinance as is with the elimination of AR1, could you also, though, add some language that those projects that are proposed have to come back to the city council and mayor for their review? Because right now, isn't that, and correct me, I think it's an administrative review as it's currently proposed. Is that correct, gentlemen?
We have too many mics on. What is proposed would be review through the Development and Environmental Review Committee. So there is a public hearing process at the staff level through the DERC.
To answer the first question, you do need to have an ordinance in place that allows you to approve the project. The project as it's proposed right now is inconsistent with the development code. So you're going to need to approve some kind of development code amendment if you want to have the project go forward. I think you could restrict the area. I don't think you can expand it, but that doesn't seem like anyone's interested in doing that. We have proposed language that strikes AR1 in its entirety. If the goal is to limit AR2 further, if you give us definite guidelines, we can amend the ordinance and it can come back for second reading at the next meeting. If you'd like staff to go and work on it, it would have to come back for first reading if we don't have a definite area to it.
And my concern about that is we can continue it, but then that does leave some level of uncertainty for Mr. Howie, because he will have to come back again for approvals.
So would it be possible to accept it as is, AR1, and then come back if we wanted to amend it subsequently?
Except AR2 as
I mean
it's
AR2.
Yeah,
excuse me,
and
AR2.
yes. Well, and you can even, if you give us these parameters on how you want to limit it, like for instance, it should not, if you don't want it to be an administrative approval with a public hearing, you want it to come back to you, I think we could incorporate that and come back to you for second reading. We can do that and still give Mr. Howie's project the approval that I think he's hoping for this evening.
Special point, Mayor.
Go.
Yeah, so if I could clarify my motion to that extent, that we'll go ahead and approve AR2 for the purposes of moving this project forward, and that we include some language moving forward that will allow the council to review. Part of me says, I think after we do this for a number of projects, we'll probably figure out what the magic formula is, and then it can become an administrative function. But I think for purposes of moving forward, I'd like to see some performance on these types of projects, and that we develop some kind of language that ensures that these projects will produce some kind of a net benefit, fiscal benefit to the city, as opposed to a net a net
Impact.
yeah,
or
net
drain.
negative impact to the city. And so long as they can demonstrate that, then I think at some point in the future, I'd be happy to just kick it to DRC and the administrative function, and we just, we go to the races with this.
Well, and Councilmember, I think what it also does is it allows for some consistency with the work that's now in process, and so that we make sure that we keep it aligned. And then that helps to give them some guidelines also, so.
Well, and we will make sure we share this with your committee that you've established, so they're aware of what the discussion was.
Councilman Valdivia?
Councilman Nickel, you made the substitute motion with those caveats. I'd also like for you to include, and that's how you'll gain my support tonight, crime-free housing element needs to be rolled into both AR zones, because if we don't have that and absent that, you won't gain my support.
I support that 100%.
And then secondly, I'm willing to compromise here on AR1 not being part of tonight's motion under the substitute motion, but I'd like to put a time frame. Can staff come back within 60 days? Because I just don't want it to linger.
No,
Downtown corridor is extremely important. Let's be unified, folks. Downtown has to get revitalized. If we just somehow dismiss AR1 tonight, then we're not doing any self-service. So economic impact and recovery, if we can do that within 30, 60 days, can we?
Yeah, remember, you have a working group, and they've committed to coming back to you. We are in the process now of scheduling the Joint Planning Commission.
If that's
City Council,
if that's the yes, and Mr. Nickel, can you make
Yeah, and
part of that?
I will include
That's fine.
60 days to come back
Perfect.
for AR1. I do support AR1 as well. I just think we need to tighten up our
That's
policy a
fine.
little bit.
Very
That's all.
good. With those caveats, I'll support it tonight. Thank you.
Support all of that that's been discussed.
All right, so we have a substitute motion, and could we make sure that we understand it?
It's like sausage.
Okay. My understanding is, the motion is to accept AR2, include language that will allow the council to review proposed projects and that they are reviewed for fiscal benefit and negative impact of the city, with language to include a crime-free housing element, and the consideration of AR1 within 60 days.
Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you.
Councilman
I have a
Schreck.
question. Sorry. I have a question, and that is, don't we have crime-free housing just automatic with multi-house, with what am I saying? Multifamily. Isn't that just automatic?
It's, yes, it's supposed to be, and we are, no, it's not, but we are getting there, yes, because it is a
Oh,
mandatory.
so it's not, but it's
Well,
supposed to be.
It's a mandatory program, but we've not done enough enforcement to make sure that people realize that it's a requirement. We're working to do that now as well.
Okay, so again, it is.
Yes.
But we just haven't informed the public well enough,
Enforced it.
enforced it enough.
Enforced it. We haven't
So it
enforced it.
is automatic, we just haven't enforced it. Okay, I just wanted to make that clear.
I will
'cause
tell you
don't
one
think
more
we have to
time,
each time.
it is
Each
mandatory,
time, we
we've
don't have
not
to say that
enforced
we want to include crime-free housing in an element of the housing in the community.
We're looking at
Because it's
ways-
automatic.
Yes, and we are looking at ways to better manage that program so that we're being more effective in our enforcement and ensuring compliance. Thank you.
All right, I want to make a correction, though, because it was stated earlier that this discussion was duplicitous, which I feel is a mischaracterization. The goals and objectives that were adopted on March 5th, 2018, includes in there to ensure development of well-planned, balanced, and sustainable city. And that's what this discussion and dialogue is about. This is not a duplicitous movement to change what those goals were established, which Councilmember Valdivia did not bother to attend. Please, are we ready to take a vote?
May I make one last comment, please?
Just excuse me one moment. Public hearing is now closed.
And the vote? I think I said yes, didn't I? No? Oh, I'm sorry. I was the mover, the seconder.
Mr. Barrios down. Okay.
I was.
On item 27, the motion to approve was made by Mr. Nickel, the second by Mr. Charette. And the item passes 7-0.
Thank you very much. Next. We have public speakers for items not on the agenda. Ray Hassan.
Looks like he's not here. He was here, but he's gone.
Robert Porter.
Mayor, council, good people. I'd just like to say that I've been watching how you guys have been conducting this meeting, and a lot of times when people were speaking, you weren't paying attention. And I'd like to know who is going to call those out on you. I mean, if we can't speak from back here, like, should you guys be policing yourselves a little better? Because just because you don't want to hear what's going on this side of just doesn't mean it's not important to us. Now, I saw if you look at your new rules for in here, at the top of it on your PDF, it said, no fiscal impact. So basically, you guys got to get your priorities straight. You're directing the assistant attorney and the staff to do something with no fiscal impact. We need you to do things with a fiscal impact. All right? We don't need you wasting money on things that aren't going to make San Bernardino money. We're here to speak. If it got that bad, you could kick us out of here. You don't have to keep making petty rules. Did you all, when you were in politics in high school, did you raise your hand and say, I'm going to be the person that silences the public? I'm going to be the one who makes it as hard as possible for the people to have their free speech. Did you do that? I hope not. So think back to those days before you were a politician, when you were in school in that politics class, and you had those ideas of something great that could happen. But don't forget about the public now. We don't need more rules on our free speech. We just need you to do things that really have a fiscal impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sandra Ibarra.
Good evening, everybody. Sandra Ibarra, 2nd Ward. I just want to share that I have been a busy bee around the city, for those who have noticed or haven't. I was out promoting the workshop that the city's having tomorrow with Parks and Rec. Pass out all 100 flyers that I had. Good job. And then I also was finishing up the tree planting canvassing for the 2nd Ward as well. And I was out collecting signatures against the rate increase. As you know, in my area, there's a lot of apartments, a lot of rentals, and unfortunately, when we have rentals, we don't know who's going in and out of those properties. Right now, I'm doing a little research, and I did put a public records request. There's 3 properties on 17th Street that I have questions on based on the comments from the homeowners in that area. How are those properties coded? They're 409 West 17, 437 West 17, and 470 West 17. They're, according to Zillow and Redfin, they're single-family residents, but they're housing upwards of 10 to 20 people in those properties. And this is why I wanted to get a comprehensive report of how they're considered in the city, if we have proper documentation to house that many people in a single-family residence, which does result in a lot of calls to PD and a lot of discomfort for the people who live in that area. So I do care about the city, and I do care about the neighborhood I live in. So just know that I've just been busy. Thank you.
Thank you. Carmel Rowe?
So I don't know if I never got called or if I missed my turn to talk about things on the agenda today. But the things I wanted to say were on items 16, 17, 18, and 19 of the agenda. And I wanted to say that Keller Williams did a good job. And I wanted to say that I'm actually pleased with the offers that were accepted. That for once, I feel like we actually let real competition get involved, because me personally and my dad as a real estate investor, those are overpriced. So the city is making some money, and I appreciated seeing that today. And if normally that was how business, was done in the city, instead of to this friend and that friend, we might actually get somewhere. So I wanted to say that I was pleased with Keller Williams. I was pleased with all those purchase contracts today. I was pleased with the prices that we were getting. Great for the city. So I wanted to come up and say something positive. But then the next thing I wanted to say is I just sat here and I just listened to everybody, and, we had a motion and we had a second and we were all going to vote before we had a discussion, and then we changed it. But what I would like to say is that we really, although we're working on a development code, there's no actual real vision and no actual real plan for this city. So the fact that you're going to put some apartment units there still really bothers me. And we're pushing it to get this guy's plan through. But if he was really so great and really cared so much for the city, then, hey, let's go back to the drawing board. What about live-work lofts? We're 80% rentals in this city. We need home ownership. So now we're building more apartments that aren't creating any home ownership, that aren't giving us any property tax dollars. Okay? That is a problem. That is a very big problem, and we should not have just let one up go. Okay? We should have had it a part of the whole downtown plan, the whole downtown corridor, which we don't actually have a vision or a picture of. So until we actually have that, we should not just be placing things that don't really make sense where they're going. The next thing I'd like to say is that the mayor, city council, and staff shall provide speakers their full attention when they're speaking. Well, Councilman John Valdivia got up when Sandra Ibarra was speaking. He's up now. Please, but you're not paying attention. Please abide by your rules if you would like us to abide by the rules. We are trying. You are not. Thank you.
Ms. Rowe, I only had one speaker slip. So if there was another speaker slip that was put forward, I don't have it. It was only for item number 26, and then the one for the...
Yeah, I had
items on-
emailed for all of them.
She sent an email after I got here today, and you should have had them in your...
So the only one I received was the speaker slip for item 26.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I was just saying I really wanted to tell you guys that I was pleased with those items today. That was my main point.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
James Smith?
Yes, Honorable Mayor and City Council, public. By the way, I think that's what every speaker should do, whether it's under public comments before or after. They should address the mayor, the City Council, and the public. And I think if we want to become a professional city, we're moving in that direction. And frankly, it started with Burtech. When the lobby discussion tonight turned over the Burtech Waste Disposal Company, doing a great job. Secondarily, we outsourced the fire department. It's a difficult decision, but the response times are so much faster right now because we're under the county fire. I think that's extremely important. The third item is that we passed a new city charter. And I think it's evident with the city council, this professional staff under the leadership of Mrs. Miller is just doing a phenomenal job moving this city in the right direction. And and then of course we're out of bankruptcy. People say, oh, bankruptcy. No, we're out of bankruptcy. It's post-bankruptcy. So if we can look at that and realize what this city has done in the last 4 years, we have been moving in the right direction. And we continue to move in the direction with our new leadership as a city manager. we don't have a deficit anymore. Before we had a deficit, we have a surplus right now. Another important thing is that we're hiring a lot of new police officers. So that is going to help the city of San Bernardino to control whatever crime we might have. We have a great police chief. We're very fortunate. Public Works Director. It's so great to have someone finally in that position. We didn't have a Public Works Director, a competent one, for 18 months, and now we do. So all the places are there, and now we just need to take the next step. And I want to commend the city manager and her office for putting together these commissions. I had a very candid conversation with Rebecca Kramer last night, and I think it was very positive because she was able to explain the combination of, and you received some information tonight, the City Council, about why we feel it's important to preserve the history in San Bernardino. We're going to move forward with that. I want to thank everybody for a great council meeting, and let's move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Sung Kim?
Hello, Mayor Carrie Davis and council members, city managers, and as you know, my name is Sung Kim, and I have spoken before you a few times on matters that we're all concerned about. I have lately found that there is a waiting list for the elderly for housing in this city, whether it's for high-end elderly care or for low-end subsidized elderly care. For low-end, it's probably a year waiting list for any elderly who would like a home to live in. For those that can pay $6,000 for their condo or their building or their house, there are places like that, but there's no place in Orange County or LA that people can afford that anymore. Housing costs are way too high. You can't build them. So I've been learned lately that there are people coming here that want to live here, but don't have places to live, which is elder care facilities. And one of the first projects that we should focus on, because they all have money, from subsidized housing to wealthy people that have retired, they need housing. I live in Colton, but I'm involved with Loma Linda, and the Korean American Seventh Adventist Church is building a church over in San Mateo Canyon at the bottom of it. And there are 2 acres across the street that are earmarked to build a elder care facility specifically for the Korean community. In downtown LA, there are high-rises there that are housing the Korean American elderly, and they pay $3,000 each to live there. I would like to propose a project down in downtown San Bernardino that we build something like that here. I think that I could connect you with Korean developers, Chinese landowners, and maybe some HUD funding for the low income that's going to be able to house in that same building. I just wanted to report to you guys the things that I've been discovering. And you know that I came from the cannabis industry and now am here promoting the city, which I love, San Bernardino. So I'm going to reach out to you all again. And I know things are going to be changing here, but I will continue to come and talk before you and try to add my voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry Lair?
Yeah, I'd like to talk to the council about this vortex. You know, if they would talk to you, if they would reason with you, we could get. Just answer it. Yeah, if they would talk to you when you call them and tell them the problem, ask them for a resolution, and all you get out of them is you pay the bill. I said, why should I pay a bill for something I don't get? My cabin I've had since 2011. I've never had trash up there. I'm up there maybe 1-2 days a month. I go to the manager and I ask him, I says, why can't you cancel my bill? I don't use no power. I have never used over 5 kilowatts in all the time I've owned the cabin. He says, let me put it to you this way. You're paying for the privilege of not using our service. And he didn't like what I had to say to him before I hung up. But this is baloney forcing us. I got a neighbor on the right. His cabin has never been lived in all the time I've lived there. I got a neighbor, friend of mine, a half block up on the left from me. His cabin has been there before I bought mine, and he has never stayed in it yet. So why are we forced to pay trash? We should have an exemption on it, but Vortex won't even talk to you. Matter of fact, they were pretty rude. I even said to him, I said, you know, sir, I said, I thought Al Capone was dead. That's what I said to him, but I said another word that he didn't like, but that's neither here nor there. But I would like, the council to think about giving the doggone people that don't use your power a break on their frickin' bill. But Vortex won't. They said you can have the privilege of paying for not using our service. And I think that's wrong. And I think the council should check into it. And thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public speaking at this time, and we now move to announcements. City Council, Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a couple. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the students from Cal State San Bernardino School of Social Work. That they did come out to clean up Second Lake on Saturday, March 10th. It was raining very hard. However, we did have 10 students with their little raincoats picking up trash, so I want to thank you, and I look forward in having a future partnership. Secondly, I would like to announce that the Ahmadiyya Muslim community of the Inland Empire and the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints are hosting an interfaith event. Protecting the dignity and honor of women is their theme. This event is scheduled for tomorrow, March 22nd, from 6:30 to 9 p.m. at 3860 North Waterman Avenue. For information, you can contact Fahim Ahmed at 951 area code 675-7507. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Barrios.
Thank you, Mayor. On March 12th, I was able to attend the appreciation dinner that ICUC held at our local diocese here, Catholic Diocese, and they awarded the city with a certificate of appreciation that was really nicely encased in a frame, and I just wanted to recognize them and say thank you for all the efforts they've done, and for the city to know that we did get recognized on that night. On Wednesday, March 28th at 9 a.m., we have our Coffee with the Cop at the Jack in the Box located at 1141 West Highland Avenue. For more information on that, call Eileen Hards at 909-384-5694. And on the last day of this month, March 31st, Saturday, at 8 a.m. to 11 a.m., we have our community dump day that's provided by our city here at Paris Hill Park at 831 East Highland Avenue. And I encourage everyone to get out there and dispose of their trash and not to leave it on the sidewalks or on the curbs. Get rid of those tires, just take it down there, and at no charge, we'll haul it away. And I just wanted also to wish everyone a happy Easter, and but you have a fun April Fool's Day as well. Thank you.
Councilman Valdivia.
I wanted to invite residents to the Lytle Creek Neighborhood Association meeting being held tomorrow, Thursday, March 22. It'll be held at the Mobile Home Estates, at the Lytle Creek Mobile Home Estates Community Room, 1177 West Congress Street. The contact person is Theodore Sanchez at 909-831-7839. Tomorrow at 6 p.m. Please, neighbors in the Lytle Creek area, we encourage you to come out and be a part of that. Also on Saturday, March 24th, we're excited to have our San Bernardino Arts Fest. Really excited to have them at the San Manuel Stadium. We appreciate our city staff and thank you very much for all of your hard work and efforts in planning and having the creative design behind it. A lot of what I've reviewed seems very top-notch, and we're excited about having it there on the southerly portion of our city. That's Saturday, March 24th, 12 p.m. to 9 p.m., San Bernardino Arts Fest at the San Manuel Stadium. We encourage all of our residents to come out and enjoy the time there exploring art opportunities. Also, I want to encourage our city manager to contemplate the strategic meetings and some of the daytime operations of our city council. I think what's important to remember is that I'm a volunteer councilman, and many of the members of this board certainly have jobs. And so I'd like to encourage our city staff and our city management team to really conduct public meetings and strategic workshops not during the day when most people are working, and to conduct those meetings after, when public can really have greater amount of input and provide some greater degree of community listening sessions. These are important. And as the mayor concluded and highlighted, I have other things to do from 8 to 5. And it's quite important that we do listen to our community. And I would encourage that we make sure that we get these strategic workshops and these public meetings after 5 p.m. when our community can listen. Thank you.
Councilmember Charette.
No, sir, I don't have any announcements tonight.
All right, thank you. Councilman Nichol.
Just two announcements, Mayor. The Blair Park Neighborhood Association meeting will take place at 3088 Serrano Road this Saturday, March 24. At 10 a.m., contact Joyce Seeger for more information at 909-882-1372. Again, that'll be this Saturday, March 24th. There will also be an Easter egg hunt at Algoon Park, address 3664 Little League Drive, hosted by the Kendall Hills Neighborhood Association. This is an annual event. The public is invited to come out and attend from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Again, that's the Kendall Hills Neighborhood Association Easter egg hunt, Algoon Park, 3664 Little League Drive, from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. That's all my announcements. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Richard.
Yes, I have a few. Saturday, March the 24th, from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock p.m., the 51st Annual Botillion Scholarship Ball will be held at the National Orange Show Center in the Valencia Room. If you need tickets, you can purchase tickets at the door. And also, San Bernardino High School class of 1967, which I wasn't a part of, but I love them dearly. Just wanted to point that out. 1967. All right. So you guys are having a scholarship program, yes, called Making Hope Happen. And this is for high school seniors to apply for a scholarship for not just a 4-year college, but for a vocational school or a 2-year college with a 2.5 GPA can also qualify for this $5,000 scholarship. Go to makinghopehappen.org and /SBHS high school. So, SBHS. And you have to apply by the end of the month, by March the 31st. So everybody get out there, if, go ahead and apply. We want to see you guys graduate. So, thank you.
And Mayor, if I might, I did contribute to that. Yes, I did.
Councilman Mulvihill.
And thank you so much for doing that, Fred.
What's that?
Thanks for making hope happen.
I'm trying to do that every day.
I think everything that I wanted to announce has already been announced, but I do want to say that this is probably going to be the last time we're going to have announcements like this, because we're going to have the opportunity of recording our announcements on Channel 3, so you'll be able to see us many, many times. You can tape us and replay it at your leisure. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. City Attorney?
No, I have no announcements, but I want to let you know you missed item number 29 on the agenda, items to be referred to city council committees.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. City Manager?
Nothing to announce, except just to tag on to Councilmember Mulvihill's comment. It will, I mean, it's funny that you say that they can videotape you, but it will also allow us to replay your announcements. So for those groups that you're providing service to and trying to spread the word about the good work that they're doing, events and programs and activities and things that they have coming up, it will actually give us the opportunity to air that more frequently. So it will air after all the tapings of the council meetings, you know, when we should replay it. And then I think it's 5 or 6 times in addition to that, at least throughout the week until the next series of announcements. So I think it's helpful to the groups, gives them a little more exposure in addition to featuring all of you on our cable station more frequently. So, and that's it, Mr. Mayor, except as a reminder, we still do have a closed session agenda item to complete.
And we will reconvene here to report out any actions from closed session on the conclusion of closed session.